Although Hua Cheng only swept a look, Shilian wholeheartedly trusted that he wouldn't have counted wrong. He said it in a hushed voice, and no one else heard besides Shilian. Shilian also swiftly scanned the circle once. Everyone here was holding hands, so just when did an extra person join? Could it be that Shiching Xuan counted wrong? Shilian asked. Are you sure that you've got the right numbers? You didn't miss anyone? Shiching Xuan swore. Nope. Didn't you say the head count is important? So I've been keeping count repeatedly, and the ones who left halfway through were also taken off the count. It's 148 of us. What is it? Is something wrong? It wasn't the right time to explain at the moment, and doing so recklessly would only start unnecessary panic. Shilian also couldn't have people point out those that they didn't recognize, because there were too many on site, and most people didn't know each other in the first place. Thus Shilian replied, No, I'm just verifying. It was even less possible for the spell user side to have miscounted, since everyone reported the number of their own household's heads to Heaven's Eye before he added them all together. There was no way they didn't know how many from their schools had come. Shilian whispered back, When did the extra one get mixed in? What is that person planning? They either came right from the start, or they mixed in when the spell users joined. But they're human for sure. At least it wasn't a ghost. In order to form the circle, everyone had to be human. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to keep those resentful spirits in. This person also didn't seem to want to be exposed for the moment either. If they had already joined the circle, as long as they let go without warning and a hole appeared, then the entire human array would collapse. However, up until now, the circle still remained stable, which meant they had been keeping to the role of iron bars properly. Which meant there was even more reason for Shilian to not act recklessly. If that person had noticed their existence was discovered, then who knew if they would just flee? It also meant it would be quite difficult if they wanted to find this person without them noticing, and pick them out without disrupting the circle. However, it didn't take long before Shilian got an idea. He turned to Hua Cheng. Sunlong, can you have your wraith butterflies only chase, but not kill those resentful spirits? I mean, chase the spirits in a direction you determine? Hua Cheng immediately understood what he wanted to do. Yes, I can. Since this person joined in of their own volition, then they must not be any simple character, and had no fear of the resentful spirits. If Hua Cheng manipulated the wraith butterflies to force the resentful spirits to the edge of the circle, then the spirits would for sure attempt to find any leaks to escape. Almost every mortal could become a leaking hole, but only one person would not. The one who joined in on their own. But this idea is really risky, Shilian said. If we're not careful, then someone might let go from fright. We'd be slapping our own faces. Don't worry, Hua Cheng said. Before that happens, I'll have killed the resentful spirits. The two formulated their plans, and Shilian suddenly raised his voice and called out, Everyone, watch out! The resentful spirits suddenly got stronger. Just hold on and don't be scared. Heaven's Eye exclaimed, What? Why would they suddenly get stronger all of a sudden? Hua Cheng didn't move from his spot, but those wraith butterflies started chasing the depraved, resentful spirits as they chaotically tried to get away. The others didn't know what was going on, but the spell users noticed that something was amiss. Heaven's Eye was outraged. Hua Cheng Ju, what are you doing? The two inside the circle had no time to mind him, and only watched the pursuit intently. Sure enough, amidst the chaos of black, smoggish torrents that filled the air, there was one person those resentful spirits didn't bother to approach at all, and the area before that person was conspicuously empty. It was him. Shillian flashed forward and grabbed that man's hands, while at the same time bridging the hands of the two next to him, and picked this man out of the loop. Heaven's Eye and his party were growing restless. What's going on? Hua Cheng answered rudely. It's none of your business. Just as he finished his words, he had already moved to Shillian's side, guarding against any unexpected trouble that man might cause. Shillian restrained that man firmly and twisted him around. That instant, when the two faced each other, Shillian forcefully swallowed the words, "Who are you?" that were already at the tip of his tongue, and widened his eyes. Staring at that face, Shillian mumbled, "Gosha, so it really was you." That man was also stunned, and it was a moment before he mumbled, "Your Highness." This face should have been exceedingly familiar, but it was incredibly foreign instead. In his memories, Gosha should have been over 30 in age, his disposition fairly calm and composed, with the sweep of his robes, and putting on airs he could fool anyone. However, the man before him right now only looked to be about 25 or 26, not much older than himself. Even if Shillian had heard his voice inside the mountain spirit body at Mount Tonglu, he still kept wondering. Perhaps he had mistaken. Even when Junwu told him, "Your master wasn't a simple character. Be absolutely cautious," he also thought the emperor could be mistaken. However, there was no doubt that the man before him was his master, and the last Gosha of Shenle, Mei Nianqing. The three of them stared at each other inside a circle formed by 300-something people, and the air seemed to have frozen. However, when Mei Nianqing finally snapped out of it, what he did right after was something unexpected. While Shillian was still stunned, he suddenly retaliated and lunged forward, strangling Shillian with his hands. However, Hua Cheng was standing right next to them, so how could he possibly allow Mei Nianqing to succeed? He didn't even need to move before Mei Nianqing was flung out, falling meters away. The sudden stir startled everyone holding hands in the circle. Why did they start fighting? What's going on? Who are they hitting? Hua Cheng exclaimed. "Gaga, are you all right?" "I'm fine," Shillian replied. In fact, it was Gosha who looked to not be fine. Mei Nianqing coughed out blood from the blow and crawled up to his feet before stumbling away, trying to charge out of the crowd. When Shi Qingxuan saw him running toward him, he cried anxiously, "What are you planning? Hey, I'm warning you. Don't you dare come over here. Your Highness, he's trying to break the circle." Shillian shouted, "Return!" Ruya answered and flew out. However, before it could wrap itself around Mei Nianqing, a sword dropped from the sky and plunged into the ground before the Gosha, blocking his way. Following right after, a white light flashed from the heavens, and several rays dropped down. Along with that curtain of light, a martial guard donned in white armor descended from the heavens and sealed Mei Nianqing's retreating path. Having both the front and the back blocked, Mei Nianqing had nowhere else to run. When he whipped around, he bumped into a Ruya who seemed to be dancing in mad joy, prancing up as it bound him tight, tumbling him to the ground. Xilian took a step forward. "My lord, how come you've come personally?" Junwu rose to his feet, his expression solemn. "Mount Tonglu has been temporarily stabilized, so I've come to see how things are going here on your end." "How did you manage to stabilize it?" Xilian asked. "I created a new barrier," Junwu replied, "and temporarily trapped those 3 mountain spirits and the other inhuman creatures." What Xilian cared about, however, wasn't those mountain spirits or other unrelated little minions. Then, white no face? Junwu slowly shook his head. "I did not find him in Mount Tonglu. I'm afraid he has long since escaped elsewhere." Xilian looked around. A field of blinding light surrounded them, separating them from the 300-something people outside holding hands. At the moment, the mortals outside the screen of light could not see what was going on within. Xilian then looked to the ground. Guo had rolled around and saw Junwu, and he probably remembered the vicious fight they had in the past. He appeared both shocked and furious, yet wisely remained silent, even as he raged inwardly. Junwu also inclined his head, watching him from above condescendingly, before speaking slowly. "Guo of Shenle. Long time no see." Hua Cheng lazily approached and gave Mei Nianqing a brief look before he said, "This Guo looks pretty weak. How did he manage to escape back then?" "He didn't escape by his own strength," Junwu said. "At the time, there were 3 helpers at his side. There were the other 3 deputy Guo of Shenle." Having listened to this point, Xilian couldn't hold back any longer. He asked, "Guo, just who exactly are you?" Mei Nianqing watched Junwu darkly, his hands clenched tight into fists, veins popping on the back of his hands, and whether he was furious that Junwu had ruined his plans, or if he was furious that Xilian exposed him, couldn't be said. It was a moment before he said under his breath, "Haven't you already guessed, Your Highness? One of the 4 guardians of the Crown Prince of Wuyong." "And that Crown Prince of Wuyong," Xilian pressed on, "is he white no face?" Hearing this, Junwu was taken aback. "Shenle, the Crown Prince of Wuyong is..." Only then did Xilian remember that he hadn't yet had the chance to report to Junwu about the affairs of Wuyong. Having finally captured Guo, Xilian had many things to report and many questions to ask, but none of that should be conducted here. Xilian replied, "My lord, let's talk after returning to the Heavenly Court." "That may be for the best," Junwu said. After humming for a moment, he added, "However, most of the resentful spirits from Mount Tonglu were sent here to the royal capital, and they can't be suppressed so quickly. Even if I am the one doing the cleansing, it'll take at least 7 days and 7 nights to do so." Did he have to wait for 7 days before he could interrogate Guo? That'd be too late then. White No Face was still at large. Xilian was contemplating on what to do when he heard Hua Cheng speak. "Leave the mess here to me. You can go up as you will." Xilian turned his gaze to him, but Hua Cheng had already guessed what he was going to say. "There's no need to say anything else. I will wait for you down here. If Gogo really wants to thank me, then just come back to me quickly after." "Will that be all right?" Junwu asked. Xilian relaxed and smiled. Yes." Just then, there was suddenly a silhouette flickering outside the screen of light. and a person came charging in from the outside. He hobbled and hopped, shouting, "Your Highness! Your Highness! What are you doing in here? Is everything all right?" It was Shih. It turned out, when Jinwoo had descended and pulled that screen of light, no one outside knew what was happening, and they were all scared to death. Shih then stepped up bravely and decided to charge in to see what was going on. If it was anyone else, they might have been blocked out. But since he had worked as a heavenly official in the past, that screen of light recognized him and actually allowed him in. The moment he entered, he was stupefied. My lord? How come you've come personally?" When Jinwoo saw him, he smiled lightly. "Lord Windmaster, how have you been?" Shih was hesitant and shy and somewhat embarrassed. After all, there was no way he didn't know by now the whole affair of Showudu changing his own little brother's fate and sending him up to the heavens. The story had spread. It would for sure cause a riot. To see his former boss now, other than feeling ashamed and guilty, he had nothing else on his mind. However, Jinwoo didn't say anything to him, and was still very courteous, giving him full respect. Shilian withdrew Ruoya, and Mei Nianqing slowly rose to his feet on his own. After Shih was done being shy, he asked puzzled, "Who's this? What's happening right now?" Mei Nianqing glanced at him and suddenly said, "You're Shih, aren't you?" Shih was taken aback. "And who are you? How do you know my name?" But the most important question was, how come he still recognized him, even with this appearance? Mei Nianqing humphed. "Your name's terrible." "Huh?" Shih was confused. However, Mei Nianqing didn't speak another word and followed Jinwoo knowingly, looking rather docile. It was probably because he knew that, now that he didn't have any helpers by his side, he couldn't escape from Jinwoo's hand. "Shenle, I will take him up first," Jinwoo said. "You're coming up in a bit?" "Yes," Shilin replied. Jinwoo nodded at him. Then the two of them left first. Shilin turned to Huacheng, but before he could say anything, Huacheng spoke up first. "Gurkha, you don't have to worry about anything. It's only just watching after the circle, making sure they don't start anything. It's nothing hard." Shih also chimed in. "Your Highness, are you gonna go up?" Go. I'll watch over things too. Don't worry." Shilin nodded. "Thank you both for your hard work." If this was in the past, Huacheng would most likely reply with, "It's nothing," or another such response. Yet unexpectedly this time, he hugged his arms and sighed. "It is rather hard work." Shilin sensed he might be hinting at something. Shih on the other hand, sensed nothing, and said excitedly, "Yeah, remember to reward us for our hard work after, right? How about throwing a feast at the best restaurant of the royal capital?" He still couldn't forget about feasting at the best restaurant of the royal capital, and Shilin thought to himself, "Lord Windmaster, please don't talk anymore. That wasn't what he meant at all." Huacheng shook his head and casually twiddled that red coral pearl tied at the end of his small braid, wiggling his eyebrows. Speaking with a seemingly nonchalant voice, he said, "If Gurga were beside me, it would have been fine. But to think Gurga is going up again, leaving me down here all by myself. I feel even more troubled by the work." Shih finally noticed something sounded weird, but he still didn't get it. He said, with a face full of smiles, "Crimson Rain Sword Flower, your words are so funny. It sounds like you're saying you're going to be lonely now that His Highness is going back up to the heavens. Just like a newlywed." You're not wrong, Shilian thought. Isn't that exactly what he meant? Shi Qingxuan laughed stiffly for a while, and Shilian finally couldn't bear it any longer and cleared his throat. Lord Windmaster, will you guard first? Just for a moment, okay? Shi Qingxuan said. Why? Shilian couldn't explain. Just guard first. We're just bidding our farewells. Only then did Shi Qingxuan exit, all confused. There were now only the two of them left inside the screen of light, not a third soul present, and Shilian turned back around. Huo Cheng was still watching him with a raised brow, seeming to be waiting for him to say something or do something. Thus Shilian gathered his courage, placed two stiff hands on Huo Cheng's shoulders, and steadied himself for a moment before he hopped up forcefully and pecked his cheek. After having done that, he looked around with a hollow conscience like a thief, and only relaxed when he saw that there was no one. Yet unexpectedly, the next second, he felt a tightening on his waist. It was Huo Cheng, who had hugged him close. Gerger, aren't you just placating me? His unhappy tone was half serious, half fake, startling Shilian. He quickly exclaimed, I'm not. Really? Huo Cheng asked. But you weren't like this at all when you were borrowing spiritual powers from me. Can I only get this kind of farewell now that I'm not lending spiritual powers? Now that he thought about it, Shilian perhaps felt he really wasn't being sincere at all. A moment later, he said in a small voice, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. After apologizing, however, the more he thought about it, the more it did seem like that was how he meant it. And alarms blared in his head. Before Huo Cheng responded, without another word, Shilian's body moved before his mind. He jumped and hugged Huo Cheng around the neck before he pulled himself close emphatically. This time, he wholly kissed the place where Huo Cheng wanted him to kiss. Yet who knew? Shi Qingxuan's voice just had to come right then, all of a sudden. Your Highness, I keep thinking about it, and the more I think about it, the weirder it feels. If the two of you are just bidding farewell, there was no need to kick me out. I'm only just... Your Highness, how come he left so fast? Shilian had fled, fumbling and stumbling.